Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com is here. It's good to have him back, looking at the matchups. In this one, it's a Super Bowl rematch. We were at the Super Bowl last year watching these two teams, Andrew DiCecco, and I want to start there. Is, in your mind, watching the Chiefs and the Eagles in February and watching the Chiefs and the Eagles as they get ready to play on Monday Night Football, how different are the two teams we're going to see on Thursday night from the ones we saw in Phoenix, Arizona?
Vastly different, especially from the Kansas City standpoint. And they had a high-octane offense last season. And, look, with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, their offense is always going to be functioning at a very high level. But right now, the personnel is considerably less than what they had just a number of months ago in Arizona when we watched them there. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's a unique dynamic in and of itself. Obviously, Travis Kelce's a tough matchup for any team, and they're going to have to dedicate a lot of resources in which trying to slow him down. And Patrick Mahomes is always someone who can extend plays and put defenses in unique binds in that way. So it's going to be a great game, and I really can't wait to watch it. But the firepower on Kansas City's end is far less than it was back in Glendale, Arizona in February.
You know, it's interesting. You think of the Chiefs, you think of Mahomes and Kelce in that offense, but their defense, 15.9 points a game. You think of the Eagles right now, the Chiefs' defense is what is really the standout about them. When you look at the Eagles, I don't know, does something stand out about them where you're like, hey, this Chiefs team, they got Mahomes, they got Kelce, but that defense is really good. Would there be something similar to describe Philadelphia through 9 games?
As far as defensively, like a calling card?
Just in general, when the Chiefs have this defense, it's really good. Plus, they have Mahomes and Kelce.
Sure.
What stands out so far about the Eagles?
A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, two high-end wide receivers that can really alter the course of a game. Jalen Hurts is the ultimate equalizer. I don't know, you're going to see him run a lot, but he puts unique stresses on defenses. So right then and there. And then defensively, you have the pass rush, and obviously they didn't get home in the Super Bowl. That was a big storyline. But I think you're going to see a lot different. You're going to see it unfold a lot differently on Monday night. I really do think that Hassan Reddick has been on a tear. Josh Sweat, to me, is one of the most underrated defensive players in the league, and those two players are operating at a very high level right now. I think they're going to be able to get home. Don't know if with regularity, but they'll be able to get home. And they always have a healthy rotation of interior linemen that I think are going to collapse the pocket and force Mahomes to maybe not be able to sit back there quite like he did in February.
Andrew, let's take a look at some of the key, little storylines starting through this game. Bradley Roby would be one because statistically speaking, Patrick Mahomes against the slot corner is best in the league. He's got the most passing touchdowns, the most yards, the most completions against slot corners in all of the NFL. The Eagles are 30th in that area, last when it comes to touchdowns. So obviously it's been a spot for them. Bradley Roby's availability and how important that spot will be this week.
Yeah, Bradley Roby's getting back at an opportune time in a big spot on Monday night, and he obviously has a lot of experience going against the Kansas City Chiefs, him being a member of the Denver Broncos for so long. And I had a chance to speak to Bradley Roby today in the locker room. He said that when I asked him about his rehab process and if he was able to kind of walk us through how, what it all entailed, he said it wasn't his shoulder, it was his pec, and he just kind of had to let it heal. And he heard it making a tackle, and I believe it was the Jets game, and that extra bye week allowed him to really let that heal and get it stronger. So him being able to get back in the lineup, there's a lot of moving parts, and there hasn't been a ton of continuity because remember, Kevin Byers just played 2 games here. Bradley Roby really hasn't played that much, so everyone's been clamoring for his return, but we really haven't seen a large sample size enough so to say that he's going to be definitively better than what we've seen in there. And obviously 2 younger players, and Eli and Sidney Brown, have done an admirable job in a tough spot holding the fort down for Roby's return. But having him back there should really help that veteran-laden secondary find its footing.
Yeah, I was going to say that secondary, you take a look at the Chiefs and you're not overwhelmed by the receiving core they have. So how does this secondary for you in this game kind of match up with what the Chiefs like to do with their offense? I mean, obviously it's very Kelsey-centric, but I don't know that Rashee Rice and MVS are two guys that you're all that saying, wow, Slay, Bradbury, Byard, Blankenship should have their hands full with these guys. So how do you like that matchup this week?
Well, it's still going to be tough because Mahomes has really made a name for himself being able to make plays outside of structure. It doesn't matter if the receivers are household names or not. You see with Tom Brady, if you're a good quarterback, you're able to make the most out of what you have from a personnel standpoint. And Rashee Rice is a nice player, but they have a lot of young and unproven players. MVS is someone who can take the top off of the defense, really just more of a vertical player. But you worry about that a little bit when you look at it from the Eagles' standpoint. Their secondary, particularly James Bradbury and Reed Blankenship, they don't run particularly well, and players of that mold can put your defense in a bind, especially when you're trying to stretch them out vertically. But they don't have a lot of game-breaking players from a passing game standpoint outside of Travis Kelce. But still, when you're looking at a secondary that doesn't have a lot of experience playing together as a cohesive unit, you have a lot of moving parts, a lot of injured guys that are now working their way back into the lineup. It's largely unsettled. So you need, and Patrick Mahomes is a player that will be able to pounce on those if the communication isn't where it needs to be, or if there's if a certain player is a hair off. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how lackluster their receiving core may appear on paper. He's someone that's going to take advantage of it.
Andy Reid, Andrew, commented about the Eagles' number one rush defense, and a lot of teams have essentially said, we're just not going to run it against them. We're not even going to try. Pacheco in the Super Bowl had a pretty sneaky good game against them. Do you anticipate that the Chiefs will try to run the ball against this team?
Oh, of course. That was Andy being coy, as coy as one might be. They're going to try and establish a balanced offensive attack, as you might expect. Doesn't matter that the Eagles led the league in sacks, 70 sacks going in the Super Bowl, and they didn't manufacture a sack, and then Patrick Mahomes didn't find any trouble getting the ball to his receivers. So it's a game-to-game basis. You never know how it's going to unfold, but they're going to try to establish a run with Isaiah Pacheco. He's more of a downhill runner, isn't really a factor stretching it wide. That's where the Eagles defense really is at their best, when they're able to use their speed and range to track him down. But he's a downhill player, and he tends to, if he gets to that second or third level, he can wear you down. He's not afraid to lower his shoulder, and I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson found that out in the Super Bowl. Actually, I think he was the one that made the hit, but it looked like he took the brunt of it there. They're going to try to establish the run, and I don't know to what degree of success, but that I would expect to see that early on.
All right, we're talking about the matchups of the Eagles Chiefs game. It's Monday night. Starting to get a little closer, starting to feel a little bit more like the Eagles are getting back here. Let's flip over to the Eagles offense and take a look, because as we mentioned, this defense very good. And, the Eagles have not run the ball very well in the last couple of weeks here. Should this run game be able to get going in the second half of the season? Do we feel better about that, or is that still something that you think they will still have issues with?
It's interesting that you bring that up, because DeAndre Swift, I believe, is 2 carries off from his career high in carries in the season. And Kenny Gainwell, I know that he's gotten a lot of folks are down on him right now, but the Eagles aren't down on him. He's still their situational player that they really rely on in 2 and 4 minute out, and when they're running a 2 and 4 minute offense, and in the red zone especially. That fumble was a blip on the radar. I think that they will get back on track. They have a good rotation of runners. Boston Scott, he missed the last game, but he's also someone that's going to factor into the rotation. And then you have Rashad Penny, who's sort of an enigma, right? I mean, he has the size. He's played well in the past, but he really hasn't been a factor here in Philadelphia. He's someone that you have sort of stashed away for when the weather gets cold and you need to get that downhill running game established. He's someone that could really be a factor, and almost like a late season addition when the games really start to matter, especially later when you get into those colder months. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be fine. I don't know. I think not having Jalen Hurts, teams not necessarily anticipating him carrying the ball as much, given the knee issue, certainly plays into it, as I mentioned on your show last week. But that's something that you have that bye week to self-scout and reevaluate on where your shortcomings are. So I certainly think that you're going to see the Eagles look to establish the run and make themselves this high-octane juggernaut that they really are.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from InsideTheBirds.com. Let's look at tight end because Goddard is out, and Sirianni was asked about him today. Hey, you guys took a couple games, I think it was a game or so, to figure out how to compensate without having them. He said, remind me of the games again, and once he said he started ripping things off here. But how do you think they will compensate by not having Goddard? I feel like this is an interesting one here because, Brown is having such a big year. You got Devonta Smith. It's almost like, you know what? We don't have to have the tight end as part of our route tree. Do they use that guy to help get the run game going? How do you envision the tight end's role kind of evolving here without Goddard?
Well, I don't believe that it'll just be one person assigned filling the void left with Dallas Goedert's injury. I think you're going to see the Eagles sort of piecemeal it together. Jack Stoll's obviously the number 2 by definition. He's a capable pass catcher, but he's really known for being this blocker. But he's someone that Jalen Hurts has a lot of trust in. He can catch the ball. He won't do much with it when he does catch it. Grant Calcaterra is more of the pass-catching option. He hasn't caught a pass this season, much less even seen a target. But he's someone that I talked to him in the locker room today. He said he's feeling fine from the concussion in which he missed the Dallas game. He's feeling normal. That's another player. Albert Okwuegbunam is another one that I gotten a lot of questions about him. He came over in a trade on cutdown day, has been sparsely used, and that's putting it mildly on offense, and he's going to get an opportunity as well. But, Mike, I'd also expect a heavier dosage of Julio Jones and Olamide Zaccheaus and Quez Watkins whenever he does come back. They're going to be piecemealing it together, but, that tells you how valuable Dallas Goedert really is to the offense.
Yeah, no doubt. And I want to talk a little bit about that passing game. Hurts has come such a long ways. He's been turned into one of the better pocket passers in the league. Who would have thought we would have been saying this back in 2021 when we were watching him play? Hey, you got one of the better pocket passers in this league. But when you look at that secondary with Snead, and Tranquil, and Reed, and Cook, McDuffie over there, how do you like that matchup for Brown and Smith?
Man, the Chiefs have a number of guys that they can shuffle in and out, and they have different body types, and they can present different types of matchups. And I really like what they've done on tape when I've had a chance to watch. But, A.J. and Devontae are just playing at such a high level right now. Jalen Hurts playing at such a high level right now from the pocket that it's hard to discount that and overlook that. It's going to be a really, really good matchup. I think that A.J. is a tough cover for any corner. And if you're going to dedicate your coverage to try and slow him down, well, you have someone like a Devontae who will thrive against single coverage. Now, the question becomes, Goddard took away a lot of pressure from those two. How do you find a way to alleviate that and find that third option in the passing attack, which is so important? But I like the Eagles' weaponry over the Kansas City defense. But look, they're going to do whatever they can to sell out to stop AJ, and then it becomes, do the Eagles have enough there to really compensate for that?
So where's one spot you like that Philadelphia has an advantage on with their offense that they should try to exploit?
Devontae. I think this will be a big Devontae Smith game. I think he's going to be able to, like I do anticipate the Chiefs doing whatever they can to make sure that A.J. Brown doesn't have an early impact on this game, doubling him if needed be, and Devontae really being the recipient of single coverage or softer coverage at least. Devontae's been quiet, and it seems like this is the ideal spot for him to have a really big awakening, so to speak.
I like that one. Looking to see Devonta Smith kind of get off and going here. Devonta Smith is, one of those guys that he seems to have, that big game out of nowhere sometimes. But, man, Brown has really just snatched up everything. He's having an unbelievable season. So that should be a fun matchup. That secondary, very young, right? There's a young secondary with a lot of young new names in that secondary. It's part of the reason why they're so good. But up front, that's where they're really good, too. Give me your thoughts on the Eagles' offensive line up front against the Chiefs.
Getting Cam Jurgens back would be huge, and he was at practice today and full go. Getting him back is going to only help from a continuity standpoint. When healthy, at full health, the Eagles have the best offensive line in the NFL, bar none. Going against any defensive line, you like the Eagles' chances there. And look, having a chance to get healthy, you have a lot of older players on that offensive line, so that bye week couldn't have come at a better time. Get those guys healthy. Self-scout, self-evaluate. They'll be the first ones to tell you that they haven't really been firing on all cylinders as far as the running game goes. So if you're looking at it, if you're nitpicking, splitting hairs, and if they're as good as the Eagles are, you think that they're going to they're going to want to prove a point there and really dominate in the trenches, especially in the running game. And from a pass game standpoint, I think that matchup's going to be heavily favored in the Eagles direction. But I like the Eagles' offensive line over the Chiefs' defensive line.
I'm going to flip it to the other side. We didn't look at that matchup because this is one spot. A lot of weeks, Andrew, the Eagles' defensive front is the difference in the game. They're just better than the team they're playing. That might be neutralized a bit in this game.
Perhaps because Patrick Mahomes and his ability to get rid of the football so quickly and the improvisational plays that he's able to do. But you know what? The Eagles pass rushers right now, and Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat are playing at such a high level that it hasn't mattered who's been in front of them. They find a way to get to the quarterback. The question becomes, if they can't, even with Bradley Roby coming back, Slay and Bradbury, Reed Blankenship doing what he's doing, Kevin Byard, is that going to, because the Eagles' pass coverage has shown to be a little bit faulty there, but I don't know that getting Bradley Roby back is going to be enough to compensate for what Patrick Mahomes can do if Astros doesn't get home.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from the InsideTheBirds.com and Inside the Birds podcast. Of course, the Eagles play Monday night against the Chiefs, and one big spot will be the quarterback play. We know that, Mahomes and Hurts. If right now they are the two betting favorites, they're 1 and 2, which guy so far for you has been the MVP?
For me, in all honesty, it's Jalen Hurts. What he's been able to do and sort of reimagine his game and alter his play style in the middle of the season and operate from the pocket as he has and completely elevate the entire offense while playing through an injury. I just think that he right now is the odds-on favorite.
All right. By the way, the actual odds right now, this is DraftKings. The MVP, Jalen Hurts, is the favorite. He is plus 280. Patrick Mahomes plus 300. So Hurts is a slight favorite over Mahomes, followed by the guy you'll see tonight, Lamar Jackson at plus 425. And, of course, that can all change. And I love this game, Andrew, for where it is on the schedule. You know, the NFL schedule's been a little rough this year, in my opinion. There's a lot of bad matchups, a lot of bad games. But the two teams coming off of a bye, so they both, not one team off the bye, the other one not. They both have a bye. It's not too early in the season. It's not deep in the season where the two teams may have some things wrapped up and some guys are banged up. Both off a bye, middle of the season. This is the perfect spot for this rematch. It should be a lot of fun. Monday Night Football back in Kansas City. And, of course, you can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, buddy. We'll catch up with you next week, pal.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Mike.
Actually, we will not be talking to Andrew on Thanksgiving Day because we're off that day. And hopefully everybody out there is celebrating Thanksgiving.